Good morning. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for streaming in with us as we get ready to hear from the rock star herself, Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. That's going to be at 1 o'clock. We have a lot of things to talk about before then. A lot of great sponsors here as we are live right now at 11 a.m. Again, looking forward to hearing from Karoline Leavitt on the heels of even yesterday with what Gavin Newsom was trying to spew to the American people last night. We'll get into some of that in a bit. Also, a lot of great moments yesterday at Fort Bragg. What awesome coverage that was that we had here on Right Side Broadcasting Network with Robert McNeely hosting, and seeing North Carolina, seeing the United States Army there, and all of the great military demonstrations and awesome moments. So we'll be replaying a few of those sound bites here and there coming up. Also, later today at 6 o'clock Eastern, we'll have some live coverage as the First Lady and the President will attend an event at the Kennedy Center. So it'll be at 6 o'clock Eastern is when our coverage will start. Speaking of 6 o'clock Eastern, a lot of programming notes. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, The Voice of Reason with Robert McNeely right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Looking forward to seeing the debut of that show and more shows into the future with The Voice of Reason with Robert McNeely. So looking forward to that here on the network. Also, we know that this Saturday is going to be huge with the massive U.S. Army 250th parade. Robert will be in D.C. for that coverage. We'll have live coverage throughout the day and into the evening on June 14th. So great coverage to be had here on Right Side Broadcasting. 6 o'clock Eastern, we'll be covering the event at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. The President and the First Lady, Melania Trump, will be attending an event there, and we'll have live coverage right here at 6 o'clock today. So that's just for today, Wednesday, June 11th. Of course, if there's any breaking news throughout the day, we'll go to it as well, especially when it comes to Washington, D.C., inside the Beltway, outside the Beltway there. When it comes to the region, anything really when it comes to America First and conservative news, we have you covered here at Right Side. Also, speaking of that, on Capitol Hill today, there are two events going on. There's a House committee hearing with the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, and the Defense Secretary in a separate hearing, providing testimony before the Senate Appropriations Committee. So two of our cabinet leaders, the Treasury Secretary for a House committee hearing, and then Defense Secretary Hegseth speaking to the Senate Appropriations Committee. So we'll be able to dip into some of that coverage throughout the next couple hours of live coverage here for a few minutes to just check in on both of those hearings as we stand by and await Karoline Leavitt as well. All right, so also there's a new video that Homeland Security just posted, the Department of Homeland Security. It's most likely about Los Angeles. I only saw the first few seconds of it, but if it's coming from Department of Homeland Security, that's a verified X account. We're going to show it to you right here on Right Side, so take a look. In Georgia said, hey, guess what? There are 26 Republican AGs, attorneys general, who stand with President Trump to restore law and order in Los Angeles. These 26 states are saying yes to President Trump and yes to what he's doing. And I believe there's probably more than 150 million or maybe 200 million people out there on the right side of history that are saying we want law and order there. This all started because after ICE was doing their deportation operation on day one, which is something that we know that was part of the plan for the campaign promises, was a mass deportation operation. So it actually was starting to happen in LA. And then that's when the protesters turned into, instead of peaceful, got in the way of various ICE agents and through many things. I mean, you talk about through, how about through the rocks at the windows of all of those ICE vehicles that were passing by on that one road. I mean, there's so many different images that we've seen. So President Trump obviously said, you know what, let's bring in the National Guard on this one, because we're not going to let what happened to Minneapolis happen here to Los Angeles. And we'll hear from the president from yesterday's Oval Office remarks about that in just a minute. Before we get into all of these different topics that are out there, and we have a live interview coming up a bit later too from America First Policy Institute's Carla Sands, who will chime in about all of these different topics. But before we get into all that, let's go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. President Trump, of course, just recently signed that new executive order to lower prescription drug prices. A major step in the right direction, but All Family Pharmacy isn't going to wait around. They're already dropping their prices to the end of June, 20% off right there. RSBN 20 is the code. They offer 200, actually more than 200 essential medications, including hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, methylene blue, and a number of other prescriptions there, antibiotics as well. So there's no insurance that you need. You don't have to deal with a waiting room. Just fast, reliable access to the medications every household should have stocked. All Family Pharmacy works with licensed doctors and ships the prescriptions directly to your door. So if drug prices are finally coming down, this pharmacy is already leading the charge and helping people stay prepared. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. All right, let's also go to Colonial Metals Group. If you'd like a free gold guide, all you have to do is go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. You'll get an info kit in the mail all about gold and silver, tax sheltered IRAs, 401ks, all in gold. Now, it's tax-free, 100% tax-free as well. So always good to check it out. At least go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN, read what you see there, and then that interest I'm sure will grow. Then go ahead and get that info kit if you're looking to put some of your money, or as much as you want, into gold and silver. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN. All right, so it's 11:08, Wednesday, June 11th. Thanks again for tuning in here and streaming in live on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Looking forward to hearing from Karoline Leavitt. I would love to hear from President Trump today, too, and on the heels of that terrible speech by Gavin Newsom just last night, trying to get ahead of things and talk about things. And, when I watched the speech in its entirety, other than President Trump's great speech at Fort Bragg, which we'll get to in a second, what I saw with Gavin Newsom was he mixed one sprinkle of truth with an ocean of lies. He said, if you protest, please do it peacefully, end quote. He said that. So it's about 10% of the truth there. The 90% of it was riddled with lies and false things of how everything transpired. It was actually kind of a joke. Now, he's very slick at doing it, though. He's very, very slick. But it's a bunch of confusion, it's not common sense, and it's not really what happened. He was saying that it was because of the National Guard that everything got worse. That's not true. What happened was we saw it with our own eyes before the Guard was even called in. The protesters started physically getting in the way of ICE deportation operations. They started throwing rocks at vehicles. They started lighting things on fire. It was going in that direction. And President Trump said, you know what, not on my watch. We already saw what happened in Minneapolis. And so we called in the National Guard. So actually, Director, if we can go to that video of President Trump talking at the Oval Office yesterday about Minnesota as well. Take a look.
You have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down 7 days. And I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, a total, you talk about an incompetent governor. He's an incompetent person. That he was picked. Well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. And we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it. But that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground.
And then we'll look at President Trump's Truth Social posts about what he has to say about it as well from recent posts after that video within the 24/7 news cycle. So we'll see what President Trump is saying about it. Of course, there's other news that's going on out there, but we just really want to give that full context of we've been watching. I was watching personally all of those videos coming out of Los Angeles over the past 4 or 5 days, and I saw how it started to progress when the protesters started interfering physically with ICE agents, getting in front of the vehicles, yelling at them in their faces, all this more violent stuff than anything peaceful. So we saw that. And again, Antifa and these different mobs that are out there that really just want to stir up all this craziness. So President Trump said, again, not going to happen. Before we get into some more information about those 26 attorneys general that are saying, I agree with President Trump, and I believe there are more out there. Hopefully they come out of the woodwork soon. But this video, which we played a little bit earlier, we're going to play it in full again this time with full video, full audio up. Take a look at what it's been like, as you guys know. So the Department of Homeland Security posting that video within the past 20 minutes and saying at the top in all bold, restore law and order now, and then also sharing a phone number for people to call as well. That's on the DHS X account. Specifically, Stephen Miller yesterday highlighting a letter that was from the Attorney General of Georgia talking about 26 Republican AGs that are saying, we stand with President Trump. So I'm going to read each state because you got to give shout out and credit to where credit's due, right? When people are stepping up for the right side of history, like we talk about President Trump here, like we talk about Karoline Leavitt, Stephen Miller, and the cabinet, and all of the great things that are happening. That's why, we're not just doing that because that's just we're paid and from some Republican group or some kind of White House thing or anything. This is we the people, just like you guys out there, when you guys go to all those rallies and all those events, we are, just because I'm in a suit right now, I could be in a t-shirt, scruffy beard and a hat and talk to you too. Because that's the connection that we have here at this network. It's from grassroots. This is what it's all about. And actually, Robert McNeil the other day, he had some scruff on his face on camera. I said, you should keep it that way. It looks good. Anyway, let's get back to it. So 26 Republican attorneys general. Let's give a shout out to the following states. Alabama. All right, Alabama. Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, and West Virginia. Again, AGs, Republican AGs at all these states say we stand with President Trump. Specifically, they stand across the country united in condemning the following 4 points: violent attacks on law enforcement, the normalization of mob violence as activism, any attempt to delegitimize efforts to restore order, and leaders who put politics above public safety. So everyone's saying, hey, President Trump isn't alone on this. We're with him. And you think about the amount of people. I wish there was like a really, really clear national poll that we could just do on our phones if we wanted to partake in one. And everybody that has a cell phone, and it would have to be all the area codes within the United States. Do you support what President Trump's doing now? I'm talking about an actual national poll with no interference from the right, from the left, nobody. It was just somehow we can get, almost if God can ask us, what do you think about what's going on down there? And he would give us the honest answer. Here's my point to all this. I believe there's probably 150 million, if not 200 million people across this land that say we want law and order in Los Angeles. I mean, we know that President Trump won in a landslide. We know that the majority of we the people are on the side of President Trump and law and order. It's part of the campaign promises, these 20 core promises to the American people. Number 2 is mass deportations. Well, it's actually happening, so this is what we voted for, including sealing the border, defending the Constitution, ending the weaponization of government, on and on and on. So we see a lot of great things happening. We're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill in a bit as well. Of course, balancing the budget, key within that framework, but still tax cuts and more immigration security on the border and on through the big, beautiful bill. Before we continue commentary and get into some live interviews and to some more videos, including from yesterday's great speech from President Trump at Fort Bragg with that really cool hat. That hat was really awesome. I know the MAGA hat's always cool. The red one, it just says "Make America Great Again." But that Army Special Forces hat, that Army hat that he was wearing yesterday, really cool colors, really cool insignia on the front of it. We'll be seeing that once again here in just a second. Before we move on, let's go to Spring, Texas, where Angel Paste is from. So angelpaste.com, all you have to do is use the RSBN promo code, and you'll get a discount off of not only the Miracle Cream that you see there on the screen, but also all the other products that are there. Angelpaste.com, they hire military veterans, a great group, a great company, and wonderful to have them partner with us here at Right Side. So just give them a visit, angelpaste.com. Also, let's go to callshe.com, callshe.com/RSBN if you're looking to better trade on various topics out there: science, technology, sports, faith, politics, the weather, anything really. All you have to do is go to callshe.com/RSBN. Also, they have an app, so if you'd rather use the app instead of the webpage, all good. A lot of interesting questions on there. If you just want to, if you're just interested at all, just check it out, callshe.com/RSBN, and you'll see all these interesting things, and then you can actually bet and trade on things. So callshe.com/RSBN. All right, so 11/18, Wednesday, June 11th. Again, awaiting the press conference there at the White House that will be scheduled, is scheduled at 1 o'clock Eastern time. We have a number of videos and live interviews to get to and some more commentary on various things out there. But we, again, just to wrap up some of the LA coverage, I mean, we may revisit it in a little bit, but again, the speech from Gavin Newsom last night, you know, I watched it and he looks right into the camera and says a lot of things that sound, oh, that might sound right, and using emotional stories to hook you in. But then at the end of the day, what he's saying is 10% truth, you know, sprinkled into 90% of false information. You know, it might come out slick and it might come out sounding like it's all, you know, correct, but the truth and the fact of the matter is he just doesn't want the government to be doing the government's job, which is to deport illegal immigrants, and that's really the clear issue here. He doesn't want that to happen. He also doesn't want a lot of great things to happen. That's why his state is not looking so hot. But those of you in California that are MAGA country loving the state of California, we're with you, and we hope for the best there in Los Angeles. And hopefully Gavin and Mayor Bass would start to see the light. I mean, there's already enlightenment out there. Why not kind of get some more awareness? Jeez. All right, that looks like Howard Lutnick right there. So let's see if he'll come to the cameras. As of right now, he is walking by. We're watching here live with you. And nothing said there. So the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, a great person, someone that really is on point for you know, U.S. and international trade, a great friend of President Trump, just walking by there right near the West Wing of the White House. So obviously, that when we say RSBN Live, that's what we mean. We go right to it if it's happening right now. So specifically when it comes to Washington, D.C., and any other coverage, like yesterday in Fort Bragg. How about that? That was an awesome speech by President Trump. Let's go to the first video of President Trump there. And instead of, you know, obviously the speech was awesome, but, you know, it's not Friday yet, but I feel like dancing a little bit. So let's watch President Trump bring on the dance there and the roar of the crowd when he did so. Take a look. I could watch that video 25 more times, and maybe we'll throw to it 25 more times, but we won't be able to do that today. We could, but we should just let that video play on loop, you know? Gavin Newsom, he's lying to the American people. Play that video. Biden back in the day, play that video. You know, it's just like, man. I mean, the Army is cheering for the commander-in-chief. And as President Trump said yesterday, if Biden was here, would that many people have even showed up? No. Would they have been cheering like that? Unfortunately, no. I mean, we want to have a commander-in-chief that we, the people, voted for and that the military supports fully. And we saw that these military members actually booed when President Trump was bringing up various things about Joe Biden, agreeing with President Trump. So it's as clear as day out there. We know what's happening. We're on the right side of history. We really hope and pray, I do, that anybody on the left, especially radical leftists, just wake up, see the light, maybe get saved, maybe find faith, maybe kind of realize common sense things. But unfortunately, there's still a number of people out there that really just don't want that. They want to destroy our country. So President Trump's doing the right thing, even though the left-wing media keeps repeating bogus claims of everything or just lying to you, using lower thirds like anti-ICE protests. Protests? How about anti-ICE riots or anti-American riots? Or, I mean, come on. We tell it like it is here. That's just what we do. Good time to plug a show. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., The Voice of Reason, Robert McNeely, live. Actually, he'll have the show regardless at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Will be The Voice of Reason with Robert McNeely. So check that out. That's tomorrow. Again, the debut show is 6 p.m. tomorrow. You'll also see Robert later today at 6 p.m. for the pre-show coverage of President Trump and Melania Trump, the First Lady, on their way to the Kennedy Center to check out Les Mis there, the event at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. So a lot of live coverage to be had a little bit later today. Looking forward to Robert's show tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on this one on RSBN Live as it's 11:24. All right, so from President Trump's speech yesterday, we're going to go to a couple more clips of just the great speech that he delivered, but also he said this, and I just want to read the quote. This week, we remember that we only have a country because we first had an army. And after 250 years, we still proudly declare that we are free because you are strong. We are safe because you are brave. And America's flag will never fall because America's army will never, ever fail. Powerful, powerful words by the Commander-in-Chief yesterday. And that tees it up for Saturday's coverage, June 14th, from Washington, D.C. You know, the amount of people that will show up there in support of the president, and on top of that, the more than 6,000 soldiers, and we'll have live coverage there as well. And then, of course, there are a few leftist groups that want to have a protest. Well, I saw that they're meeting in some other area, part of D.C., and they're saying, no violence, guys, just be peaceful. Well, if they're peaceful, that's their right. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the Constitution. Obviously, if it gets worse than that, like it's done in L.A. and other places, then that would be a problem. So regardless, though, June 14th, of course, President Trump's birthday, Flag Day, and the 250th birthday for our United States Army. Looking forward to seeing that coverage. But we have a lot of coverage to get through today, tomorrow, and Friday yet. Let's go to one more clip from President Trump during his speech, speaking about so many great things about the Army and about America and patriotism. Let's take a look.
Now it's your turn to carry that flag forward and to add your own daring deeds into this chronicle of triumph and legends. Now it's your duty to shield the flame of freedom that was first lit 250 years ago by the heroes of Concord Bridge and Bunker Hill. Standing before you today, I am more confident than ever that in the days ahead and every generation to come, the U.S. Army will heap glory upon glory upon glory upon us all. You will protect every inch of U.S. soil, and you will defend America to the ends of the earth. Wherever danger is, there the U.S. Army will be. Another beautiful phrase. Whatever peril comes our way, Whatever menace threatens our people, you will stand strong, you will be proud, you will charge hard, and you will keep that flame lit, that beautiful, beautiful flame. You're going to keep it lit. You will hold the flag high, and you will do something that's become quite a famous little phrase also, but you're a hell of a lot braver than me. You will fight, 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 and you will win, win, win. Thank you. God bless you. God bless.
What a speech it was yesterday, and we'll play some more clips from that speech in just a minute. But also, Pete Hegseth is speaking at the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee, so we'll be dipping into some of that coverage. And also Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, speaking in a House committee. So we're going to check both of those things out after the commercial break. But before we get to a commercial, let's talk about Tax Network USA. 800-357-1415 is the number. tnusa.com/RSBN. If you have, maybe it's 2018 or 2022 or whatever year, and you maybe missed some taxes, or maybe you have a number of years that you missed, take that first step. Just give them a call. The great patriots there, 800-357-1415. They'll help you settle and get some of those taxes taken care of through Tax Network USA. So a great sponsor here at Right Side. Also, if you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network as we continue to grow here, new shows happening, of course. Tomorrow's show for Robert McNeely for the Voice of Reason at 6 o'clock. All you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801. So just text RSBN to 801-801. Thank you so much for any donations that you can provide, as it's the bottom of the hour here, 11:28, 11:30 almost the bottom of the hour. And looking forward to hearing from Karoline Leavitt today, and also any other news that happens throughout the day. Later today at 6 o'clock, we'll have live coverage here at Right Side. Robert McNeely will be in studio for that, and we'll have video there with President Trump and the First Lady Melania Trump as they go to the Kennedy Center for an event. So looking forward to that coverage a bit later today. All right, so I'm Matthew Alvarez. This is Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thanks again for streaming in. We'll be right back after the commercial break.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense, and they make it easy to get hard-to-find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Always great to see Mike Lindell. And of course, we talk about MyPillow all the time here at Right Side. And you think about Mike and all those rallies and events that we interviewed him live out there at all those speeches. What a time that was, the rally seasons. Well, hopefully we can have more rallies in the future. I mean, we saw one just the other day in Pittsburgh with RSBN host Megan Kohler there live. So it's awesome to see that. In the meantime, let's pivot over to Capitol Hill right now. The Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is speaking before the Senate Appropriations Committee. Let's go there live.
I just want to make sure the commitment's there.
Sir, you've got my support to continue to advocate for the program through the Air Force and through the chief and the secretary down there.
Thank you, sir. And then I want to flip to the other side of the coin, which now is Golden Dome. I mean, we've got the nuclear forces, so nobody ever tries to fire a missile at us, right? And then with the Golden Dome, it's, well, I guess if they do, we're going to take it out. Now, in that regard, you've got a number of programs that are critically important to our capabilities to make sure that we have better technology for our forces than our near peer. So, for example, TRMC, Test Resource Management Center at Air Force, we're now developing the Sky Range program at the Grand Forks Air Force Base, which enables us to test hypersonic missiles. I wonder, George Rumford leads that program. I wonder, understand your commitment to that program. To drone, counter drone, which we're seeing is so important. And again, we've got both a test site as well as Grand Sky Technology Park on the Grand Forks Air Force Base. Your commitment to upgrading ISR, not just trying to do everything from satellites. So think next gen ISR, taking beyond Global Hawk, right? Which you need in places like, whether it's supporting Ukraine or certainly in the Middle East, and like the very good work you did taking out the Houthis and putting a stop to that nonsense, okay? And then also SDA and the low Earth orbit satellites. Starting with you, Secretary, talk about your commitment to those programs, and if you agree they're vitally important, both in terms of achieving Golden Dome, but in terms of our near-peer challenges, in terms of maintaining our capabilities, our superiority. And same thing, General, I would put the same question to you as well.
Well, Senator, I certainly agree about your lens. Your lens is near-peer adversaries, capabilities to threats, and defending the homeland. Things like hypersonics, like UAS, counter-UAS, ISR, critical to that. That's why there's robust increases in those budgets in all of those places, both for how they might be applied in the Indo-Pacific or elsewhere, but also integrated into the Golden Dome.
Thank you.
Senator Schatz, and then
Could the General respond?
Sir, I'd echo the Secretary's response. The effects are the key, and we'll stay close on the effects that you're trying to achieve, and I appreciate your advocacy for those effects.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to work very hard to make sure that we have resources going into those programs, because that's where, as they say in hockey, that's where the puck's going.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll take all resources at all times, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Secretary, thank you for being here. Good to meet you. General, thank you. Ms. McDonald. I'll start with General Kane. Is the United States being invaded by a foreign nation?
Sir, thanks for your question. I think at this point in time, I don't see any foreign state-sponsored folks invading, but I'll be mindful of the fact that there has been some border issues throughout time, and defer to you to DHS, who handles the border along the nation's contiguous outline.
Is there a rebellion somewhere in the United States?
Sir, I think there's definitely some frustrated folks out there.
I mean, if frustrated folks were a rebellion, and I guess that goes to my question for the secretary. Two things. There should be some sort of paper flow that the committee, the Congress, the public can look at in invoking Title 10, Section 12406. So can you give us some clarification on whether the orders that were issued apply to specifically Los Angeles, to California generally, or is this a nationwide order?
The orders that have been issued, which are publicly available and known, relate to an ongoing situation in Los Angeles, which could expand to other places. But it's quite easy to point out that there has been an invasion of 21 million illegals in our country under the previous administration.
So
this
what
administration was elected
Can we
to
take
get a
turns?
hold of that.
Yeah, could we just
And
take
when you
turns?
have
Yeah.
ICE officers being attacked with concrete blocks,
Secretary, I
they
would
should
really,
be allowed to do their job.
Secretary, I'd really like to not try to create a viral moment for either of us. I'm actually trying to understand kind of the scope of this order. The order effectuates the ability to mobilize the Guard and the Marines. In the order, it does not specify a location. It does not specify which Marines or which Guard. And I'm trying to figure out if you decided to do this collectively in Kansas or any other place, would you need to specify a new sort of fact pattern, or do you think this order applies to any Guard, anywhere, any service branch, anywhere? It's just I get your justification. We disagree about the circumstances. I'm just trying to figure out, did you just potentially mobilize every Guard everywhere and every service member everywhere? I mean, create the framework for that. I understand you didn't. I'm saying, what does the document do, in your opinion?
Senator, if you notice, the initial order of 2,000 in California was followed by a follow-on order for the additional 2,000, with a recognition that the situation there required more resources in order to support law enforcement. So part of it is getting ahead of a problem so that if in other places, if there are other riots in places where law enforcement officers are threatened, we would have the capability to surge National Guard there if necessary. And thankfully, in most of those states, you'd have a governor that recognizes the need for it, supports it, and mobilizes it him or herself. In California, unfortunately, the governor wants to play politics with it.
I did step on the last part of your sentence, so I'm going to try to take turns here. Just on the 747 question, did the Department of Defense initiate the conversation with the Qataris? Did they initiate the conversation? How did that go?
Senator, I have to go back and review it, but we've been a part of the ongoing conversation.
Yeah, but I think it kind of matters who's asking, doesn't it?
Ultimately, the Defense Department is, or soon will be, when the memorandum of understanding is signed, in receipt of a gift from the Qatari government that could serve, once it's modified, eventually as something that the president could use.
I mean, I think this is illegal and unconstitutional, and I won't rant about that, but I actually think from the standpoint of our collective responsibilities, it very much matters what the paper flow was, who started these conversations. Did it come out of the White House? Did it come out of the Secretary of State or the President or the SecDef or at a lower level or ambassadors? Like, we're entitled to know, because we can agree or disagree about the propriety of this. But my basic request of you is that if we're going to disagree, let's disagree with the same set of facts. Let's have the documentation on the Qatari aircraft. Let's have the same set of documentation about what these orders do and don't do with respect to Los Angeles. Because if we're just going to scream past each other and then see who succeeds more on the internet, that's actually not the way to do this work. We're supposed to be in struggle against each other, but in a way where we actually have all the information. You have our information, we have yours, and so I'm hoping that we can get some documentation about both matters in a nonpartisan, bipartisan way. Thank you.
Senator Bozeman and Senator Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so watching some live coverage there on Capitol Hill, the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth there listening to Senator Schatz. Interesting Democrat senator there, as Pete Hegseth standing his ground, of course, for the American people. Let's shift over in just a second. We're going to go to the next stop in Capitol Hill, or on Capitol Hill. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, is speaking at a House committee. So this is all while we are awaiting the press conference with Karoline Leavitt coming up at 1 o'clock. We have a number of, well, at least have one live interview coming up at about 12:30 with Carla Sands of America First Policy Institute, and a few more clips from yesterday's Fort Bragg live footage that we had here on right side of President Trump's great speech there. So again, great to see Pete Hegseth. Again, this is day 2 now. He was at the House yesterday committee speaking about appropriations, and now with the Senate, and definitely standing his ground for the common sense America and decisions that President Trump made for Los Angeles. So before we move to the U.S. Treasury Secretary House Committee, let's go to a couple sponsors. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN is one of our great sponsors here. As you know, President Trump just signed that executive order to lower prescription drug prices. Well, that's a major step, of course, in the right direction. But All Family Pharmacy, they're not waiting around with the prices right now. They're saying, you know what, let's do 20%, let's drop it down. And that's all the way until June 30th. So they offer more than 200 essential medications, including ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, and others. There's antibiotics as well, and even your daily prescriptions, all with a doctor's prescription included. No insurance is needed, no waiting room, just fast, reliable access to the medications every household should have stocked. Now, All Family Pharmacy works with licensed doctors and ships directly to your door. So if drug prices are finally coming down, we know that this pharmacy is already leading the way and leading the charge and helping people stay prepared. So all you have to do is go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for more information, but also use that RSBN 20 promo code. Great stuff there. A great company, allfamilypharmacy.com. Also, Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Always good to hear from the people at Colonial Metals Group. We interview a number of people from both All Family Pharmacy, Colonial Metals Group, Kimchi, all these different kind of companies, Brightcore and that kind of thing. So hearing more about gold and silver and tax-sheltered IRAs, 401ks, backed in gold and silver, all 100% tax-free. So get the 1, 2, 3s on the easy steps that you can take by getting that free gold guide. So just go to freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Colonial Metals Group, another sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, so it's 11:45, Wednesday, June 11th. Before we play some more clips of the great speech from President Trump from just yesterday, let's go to Capitol Hill. Let's return there, this time to the House, as there is a committee hearing with the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Director, do we have that ready to roll? All right, let's go to Capitol Hill right now.
You answer the question, because I want to know. I'd like to know whether or not.
I'm in the habit of saying thank you to compliments. That the so-called X date is a moving target.
So when do you you're the Secretary of Treasury. So tell me, when do you predict, given where we are right now, will we hit the ceiling?
Some point in the middle to late summer.
Is that August, July?
Again, it is imprecise.
Well, sir, I just think that it is an abomination that we are actually giving bigger tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans who don't need a tax cut.
The gentleman's time
Meanwhile,
has expired.
we're taking away food assistance and health care from people who desperately need it.
Gentlewoman's time
Thank you,
has
and I yield
expired.
back.
I now recognize Mr. Estes for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary Bessent. Thank you for being here. I know you have been very busy in the last 2 days, and appreciate you coming back with struggling through the jet lag that you're obviously feeling. I just want to. I have some remarks here. I just want to throw out a couple of comments that have been talked about. I mean, and I believe you mentioned this earlier, is that after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the top 1% went from paying only 40% of the tax burden to now paying over 46% of the tax burden. So as we've put in this good Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the top 1% are actually paying more. And I know a lot of questions from the other side of the aisle talked a lot about the deficit. And as you mentioned in your earlier remarks, the country's been fairly consistent in maintaining tax revenue at about a 17 to 18% of GDP. Unfortunately, the problem we're dealing with now is spending has ballooned up to roughly 23% or 24% of GDP, which is creating that problem that we have an imbalance. So I have several things I want to cover. First, I want to talk a little bit about Section 899. It's a common sense provision that's based on two bills that Chairman Smith and I introduced. It's not new. It's not revenge, as some in the media have been proclaiming and wailing about the last few weeks. It's a reasonable approach to make sure that foreign countries don't pilfer the U.S. Treasury with UTPRs or DSTs. And the fact is, if we do nothing, we're ceding our tax authority to other countries. And the JCT is warning us that we will lose $122 billion in tax revenue over the next 10 years. Ways and Means could have responded with much more severity in terms of the bill that we looked at. We took a measured approach that maintains our tax sovereignty and that either discourages our allies from moving forward with these discriminatory taxes, or will raise our tax revenues by $116 billion over the next 10 years. I'd like to submit, Mr. Chairman, for the record, an op-ed from Bloomberg that covered this topic. Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Secretary Percent, are the fears that Wall Street has over the 899 grounded in truth, and what's behind the stir, and why wasn't there outcry from the Wall Street and economists during the last administration working with OECD in a manner that put America last?
Sir, I believe that there is quite a bit of misinformation on 899, and I also believe that if businesses came back, took a deep breath, and much of the pushback is coming from overseas companies, and overseas companies are worried that their countries may try to usurp U.S. authority. So if a European country, they tried to unfairly tax a U.S. company or take money away from the U.S. Treasury, then it would fall perhaps on that corporate. So they should look to their own capitals. This is a fiscal bill, not a revenge bill.
Right, I agree with that. I think that some of these companies need to be lobbying their own government instead of trying to lobby
100%, Congressman.
Administration. Something else that I've been pushing over the last 6 years has been research and development expensing. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit this Washington Examiner op-ed titled, "We're a Nation of Innovators, but our tax code no longer encourages it."
Without objection, so ordered.
Immediate expensing for research and development is a jobs provision, with 3/4 of the R&D expending spent on wages and salaries. Also has broad bipartisan support. I believe we need to provide businesses with certainty by making immediate write-off permanent, because it takes longer than 4 years to actually develop more new methods and technologies. Secretary, can you help explain why it's critical for our country to return to immediate R&D expensing, hopefully on a permanent basis as we finish this bill?
Sir, we are the undisputed technological leader in the world, from AI to life sciences. And one of the reasons for that has been the expensing of R&D, and we are pushing very hard to make this the best location for whether it is high-tech investing, whether it is biomedicine, or any other, the manufacturing process that we want to bring back. Part of the problem, I believe, is that the manufacturing process has been separated from the R&D process. So we need to have both of them here sitting side by side in the United States.
Yes, thank you. And there's so many other provisions I could do, but I'm out of time. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Delbene is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Mr. Secretary, do you support the government having a consolidated database containing Americans' sensitive financial health and personal information?
I support protecting Americans.
Do you support the consolidated database?
I support protecting Americans' personal
So,
information based on current law.
I think it's very concerning that you're not able to say no. This is not a partisan question. In fact, just last week, Republican Representative Warren Davidson responded to reports that DOJ is merging huge sets of data from across federal agencies into a centralized repository. He said it's dangerous when you start combining all those data points on an individual into one database. It's a power that history says will eventually be abused, end quote. Well, I could not agree more, and would also add that this kind of database would be a gold mine for malicious actors who are eager to exploit Americans' sensitive data. And Mr. Secretary, Section 6103 sets forth the confidentiality and disclosure rules for tax returns and tax information. Just because DOJ wants to compile people's sensitive information into one place doesn't mean the confidentiality rules go away. Is that correct?
We adhere to 6103.
So it seems like, that should be a simple one too. We should absolutely be clear that the confidentiality rules did not go away. In fact, earlier in this hearing, you asserted that the Treasury Department is following, I think you said, the proper provisions within the Privacy Act, all proper provisions within the Privacy Act and Section 6103. So my question for you is, how can we be sure that's happening? I mean, especially knowing that the president illegally fired 18 inspectors general, including acting Treasury IG Sherba. How do we know? I'm sorry, you saying that isn't good enough. We're an oversight body. How do we know?
Again, I will say that we are following the law, and that.
But we need. That's not good enough, Mr. Secretary. You should be coming. We should have officials within Treasury coming. We should, and this is a statement to my colleagues on the other.
I'm here today.
But you're not answering how we know that. You're just saying we are. So
what would an acceptable
then let's
answer
bring
to
then
how
let's
do we
bring
know
people
be?
who are building a database. Let's go through the details of exactly what you are doing with that data, what protections are in place. We should have hearings doing that. In fact, we requested hearings on this from our partners on the other side of the aisle, refused to bring people from DOJ, et cetera, into this committee so we can be sure that, a consolidated database.
A judge in the Southern District of New York has ruled that all of our protocols are.
Mr. Secretary, we are a co-equal branch of government. We are the oversight body. I'm answering, I asked that question because it is part of my job, not to have you just say it's okay.
And a judge's
then
word,
let's
I'm
look
not
at
sure
it.
how to satisfy.
I think because we actually have the authority to get that detail. We are oversight. We are not just here to have you say, don't worry about it. We're here to get detail. And I want you to be clear that it helps. This is a risk to the American people. This is sensitive personal information. There is no clarity on how this is being protected. Early on in this administration, people were given access to information with no controls. We have not had folks come into hearings. That's not good enough, Mr. Secretary, and I'm supportive of making sure that we are using technology in smart ways. I'm also very supportive of making sure that we are protecting people's personal information and we are following the law. 6103 is clear, and there is no, and now this consolidation, there's no approval on how this consolidation takes place, and you can't even be clear to me that you're about where you stand in terms of making that happening. So I don't think we're getting the information.
Maybe it did not filter up to you, but we provided a staff level briefing several weeks ago.
Then let's bring folks. I want to ask the questions, frankly. It's not about whether or not you had a staff level briefing. Let's bring experts to answer detailed questions in this body so that we get those answers. I have a technology background. I'm happy to have those detailed conversations of exactly who's given access, how that access is given, and how we are making sure that information is protected. We absolutely have to make sure that there are no violations, that there are the right protocols put in place. We have no data to say that. We just have, you'd say, just trust me, it's okay. That's not good enough. And Mr. Chairman,
Southern District of New York. Gentlewoman's time has expired.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I now recognize Mr. Smucker for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary.
So many things to say right now, but you know what? We saw it. You have your opinion, I'm sure. Great to see Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury there. So, all right, so we jumped into a couple of the Capitol Hill hearings, one in the Senate, one in the House. And coming up in a bit, we'll have a live interview with Carla Sands of America First Policy Institute to talk about a whole slew of things going on out there in the country, including Los Angeles and the situation there. But, you know, yesterday was still great, though, with the speech by President Trump at Fort Bragg. So we're going to get into a number of live videos and more programming coming up in just a second. But let's go to yesterday with President Trump. Sometimes when you hear all this back and forth, we know Scott Bessent speaking truth there. You just want to hear a voice that is just common sense. Let's listen to President Trump.
Who have laid down their lives for America rest by the thousands in the sacred soil of Arlington and Gettysburg, Anzio and Manila, and to far-off places known only to God. We owe everything to them. Today we renew our devotion to the cause of liberty for which they so selflessly lived and fought and so bravely died. There could be no greater tribute to their memory than to prepare the Army to dominate America's enemies for the next 250 years and more than that. That's why under the Trump administration, we're focused on restoring the spirit of the U.S. Armed Forces. No soldier ever volunteered for the Army to be lectured about transgender diversity or inclusion. You don't want to hear that. Transgender for everybody. We don't do that. America's patriots joined the Army to kick down doors, storm beaches, kill terrorists, and win America's wars. That's what we want. And that's what you want.
Okay, so we'll go to a few more clips in just a minute. About the top of the hour here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, of course, waiting for the press conference at the White House, which is slated for about exactly 61 minutes from now. So we'll have that in its entirety, of course, as we cover the news of the day and also yesterday within the 24/7 news cycle of President Trump's speech, but also yesterday he spoke at the Oval Office all about the reasons why he put the National Guard in place there in Los Angeles. Again, just to re-rack that, we know that it all started after ICE deportation operations were starting in LA, and the protesters, instead of peacefully protesting, maybe with a sign across the street like, we don't like you or whatever, you have that right to do that from across the street or wherever. But then when you get in front of ICE agents, when you start getting in front of vehicles, when you start yelling in their faces, when you start throwing rocks, weapons, rocks are weapons too, right? So throwing them at passing ICE vehicles. And then you see that, you know, the LAPD, the great officers there at the LAPD, SWAT team and all, detectives, everybody. My dad was a detective on the East Coast, so I get it. Unfortunately, though, when you have the influence of a leftist government pushing down on the chief, being like, well, you know, just let them kind of, or whatever she was saying to him, because we saw that it just wasn't, the job wasn't getting done. Not because probably of the actual officers, they probably just wanted to do their job. But so we saw the National Guard come in. So we'll play that soundbite from President Trump just yesterday in the Oval Office. Actually, we have it queued up. Why not play it now since we're talking about it? So let's go to the Oval Office from President Trump as to why he brought the National Guard to LA.
You have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down 7 days, and I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, a total, you talk about an incompetent governor, he's an incompetent person. That he was picked, well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. And we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it. But that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning.
Exactly. Right now, Los Angeles would be burning. It would be like Minneapolis was years ago. So great to see that the National Guard is there. Great to see that the Marines are there. Great to see that local law enforcement is hopefully working right alongside everybody to get it taken care of. Law and order in Los Angeles. All right. So President Trump on Truth Social said the incompetent governor of California was unable to provide protection in a timely manner when our ICE officers, great patriots they are, were attacked by an out-of-control mob, agitators, troublemakers, and or insurrectionists. And then President Trump said, make America great again. So about 5 hours ago, that was a post from the president. So, all right, yeah, I mean, we can now decide. We see the video, we see and hear what people are saying, and we all know where we stand on these issues. And the right side of history is with President Trump and we the people, which is the majority of the country. We hope for peace, right? Peace through strength. But when there's actual attacks that are happening, you have to defend. You have to take care of business, and that's what the National Guard is doing. We saw the videos out of Los Angeles, and we're seeing some smaller events happen in other parts of the country, in Chicago, in New York, and I believe it was Houston. But what we do know is that we're seeing that we have a government that is about law and order. And outside of all this, when you really take that 30,000-foot view, this is all part of the reformation of America. All of the different corrupted, departments and that kind of thing. Well, we had DOJ to go in there and exploit all these ridiculous expenditures. Then, people that are all against President Trump within different departments, they got shown the door because this is a government that is on the right side of history, working for we the people, the majority of the nation. 26 attorneys general from Republicans out of all of these states, everything from Alabama to Florida and on, have said we stand with President Trump and what he is doing there in Southern California. Add on top of that, how many millions of people are in support of this? Is it 100 million? Is it 150 million? Is it 200 million? I mean, we have 347 million or so people in this whole country, right? And if we were to have a poll with the ones that actually can use a phone, I mean, a lot of kids out there, they don't have phones, right? I have a 8-month-old baby. She's not going to say, hey, I think that this is good that Trump's doing that, right? The point is, I wonder how many people are saying, hey, this is the right thing to do. And the only ones that are saying it's not are leftist radicals, all right? That's what's happening. I mean, even some Democrat governors out there haven't really chimed in as much because they know this is ridiculous what's going on there in Southern California. So, all right, let's go to mypillow.com, mypillow.com/RSBN. That is an awesome product, and you'll get it for free through a purchase there, any purchase. So if you want to get some coffee, how about My Coffee, right? You can get that and then get a pillow for free. That's pretty cool stuff. So at least get one item. If times are tough right now financially, I hear you, I understand. The point is, hopefully the big, beautiful bill will pass so those tax cuts happen too, as we balance the budget as well. However, this is great. You get one product, you get a free pillow. That's pretty awesome. And it's not just a pillow, it's a pillow with our flag on it, the Old Glory flag. So why don't we do this? The images that we've seen out of Los Angeles by the mob, the woke mob, right? And people that are paid, and who's paid, who's not, who knows. But you see that there's different things going on. Like, how about the boxes the other day with all of different gear that people were handing out to some of the protesters? It's like, who's spending money to really do that? Anyway, the point is, if you love America, and I'm not going to guilt trip you guys on this one. I know you do. But if you really can, seriously, go to mypillow.com/RSBN, purchase one thing. I mean, what does it say? It says with any purchase. So if you don't have extra dollars right now, but you have just a couple on the debit card, just go ahead and buy something small, something really, really low priced. And you get the free American flag pillow. Let's bring patriotism to the next level here by showing our true colors. And our colors are red, white, and blue. And there's a free pillow for you. mypillow.com/RSBN. All right, let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interviewed the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. We have some more live footage coming up. Of course, we'll be going to the West Wing of the White House for the press conference with Karoline Leavitt, so looking forward to that. Also, later today, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, Robert McNeely will be here in studio covering the Kennedy Center event where President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will attend that event. Les Mis is the show tonight, so it'll be great to see that. I'm not sure how much we're actually see the show or not, but we'll bring you whatever we have live here. But definitely 6 o'clock Eastern, we will be live with Robert McNeely. Also, programming note, tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern as well, The Voice of Reason with Robert McNeely will air right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So we're looking forward to that debut show. That's tomorrow at 6 p.m. right here on Right Side. All right, so let's go to a part of President Trump's speech from yesterday as we focus in on something that's really going to be awesome this week. Before we talk about June 14th, let's just go through this quote one more time about the Army. President Trump said yesterday, "This week we remember that we only have a country because we first had an army. And after 250 years, we still proudly declare that we are free because you are strong. We are safe because you are brave, and America's flag will never fall because America's army will never, ever fail." Man, that's good. And if President Trump is got some great words to say and also great speech writing. But the thing is, at the end of the day, when you bring it all together from the heart, to be able to articulate these kind of things. I was talking to a good buddy of mine yesterday on the phone about just sometimes we have all these thoughts and ideas and these feelings. We want to be able to articulate it. And let's make articulation great again, because sometimes it is difficult to share the thoughts that we have or the feelings that we have. What I'm talking about is just putting it together in simple terms, like that quote right there. I mean, how powerful is that quote right there? So, yeah, articulating things like how Stephen Miller does, Karoline Leavitt, President Trump, and on. So many people out there. And then many of us, I believe, in conservative media, hopefully being able to share with you our thoughts and even prayers. Because you saw yesterday we had Pastor Lorenzo Sewell from that Detroit 180 church that prayed at the inauguration. He was on the air yesterday with us, and I believe it was yesterday, it might have been Monday. They all mix together sometimes, but we prayed on air because it's part of what we do here in this country, and it's not something to hide, right? So proud to be able to have that opportunity with you, we the people, as we continue to wait for today's great press conference by Karoline Leavitt. So, all right, so let's talk about June 14th, and then we'll go to some of President Trump's great Fort Bragg speech moments yesterday. So the 250th, of course, anniversary for the U.S. Army. Some of the graphics there from the United States Army, June 14th, right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's going to be kind of like Rally Day in America, but I also want to call it maybe Patriot Day in America. We're going to have a lot of patriots there. And again, if we just want to look at common sense, we're going to look at what the word patriot is as we see George Washington there, man, going across the Potomac. What a moment in time for our country. A patriot is a person who loves, supports, and defends their country and its interests with devotion. So you love, you support, and you defend your country and its interests with devotion. So I know a lot of us love our country, and it's going to be a lot of people that love our country on Saturday, June 14th there. As President Trump would say, I'm going to quote him as he's shared at the rallies, it's a love fest, right? You remember all those rallies? He would call them love fests, and it was true. You remember all the times that we the people would chant, we love you, right? Good times there at all those rallies as we continue to cover America First news stories, and also things that are based in, again, common sense, the Constitution, the Bible, everything that's just common sense and right. Remember, we talked about the election. It's an election between what is right, an election between what is right and what is wrong. And so we obviously are on the right side, and as Bobby's saying, the correct side of history. So it's great to see that. All right, let's go to President Trump from just yesterday at Fort Bragg. We're going to play a few of those clips. And then at 12:30, America First Policy Institute's Carla Sands will join us to talk about a lot of the news of the day within the 24/7 news cycle. Again, my name is Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for watching us here on RSBN Live. Let's go to President Trump from just yesterday.
Going further, I want to say a few words about the situation in Los Angeles, California. Have you heard of the place? Where I've deployed thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to protect federal law enforcement from the attacks of a vicious and violent mob. And some of the radical left, they say, oh, that's not nice. Well, if we didn't do it, there wouldn't be a Los Angeles. It'd be burning today, just like their houses were burning a number of months ago. Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen. It's never going to happen. What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags with the aim of continuing a foreign invasion of our country. We're not going to let that happen. A soldier is not just a job, it's a calling and a sacred tradition passed down from father to son, brother to sister, and one generation to the next. At every hour of danger, our noblest citizens have answered that call, kissed their loved ones goodbye, and run to to the sound of guns. You run to the sound of guns. You're running right into them. You're going to win. When the
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. As you saw President Trump speaking there at Fort Bragg yesterday, we might have to replay what we played about the top of the broadcast, which started at 11 Eastern, the time when President Trump there yesterday was did the Trump dance. So, and you heard the roar of the crowd. What an awesome moment that was. Kind of fun as well. So when there's all of this noise that's happening out there outside of yesterday's great event, but all of the different news that you hear about and all these opinions, and, you know, Gavin Newsom with his speech to Los Angeles last night, which again was about 10% true and 90% lies. You always, when there's a lie, it's kind of like you just dip in a couple of truths into it and then the rest of it's just not true. Well, that's what we heard from Gavin Newsom just yesterday. But anyway, while we're dealing with all these different things that are going on in life, there are two things that right now I just thought of. I'm like, you know what? Psalm 23 is one of the scriptures, and then also President Trump's words on January 20th. So I'm going to read that quote real quick here as we get ready for our live interview coming up, but also we'll go back to some more of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, that great speech yesterday. So this is a quote that I've read a few times, obviously, here on the network, but this is what I like to think of when you have so many things going on out there. You know, think of something like this. From President Trump. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by our strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country, we will not forget our Constitution, and we will not forget our God. That's what he spoke on January 20th. So that's something that's powerful to know, that he's not forgetting all of us, all of we the people. He's not forgetting our Constitution. And he's obviously not forgetting our God. And speaking of our God, let me just read Psalm 23 quick for you. And again, I'm doing this because it's just something that I think sometimes we just need to be based and anchored and know that, hey, everything's going to be all right. Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for the good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. So all things means everything. Ugly things, bad things, good things, great things, all things are working together for the good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. Let's read Psalm 23 here together. Before I actually read it, I want to give you a little context. You know, when you go through the ups and downs of life and your own journey, you know, you learn a number of things. Life is a classroom. There's a lot to learn and a lot to improve upon and all that. So when I come at you and want to read a scripture or want to read a great quote, it's because everybody has a story, have had a story of ups and downs in life and getting to the next level. And so I'm not just here acting like a pastor or something, let's read a scripture. I really, really, really authentically believe in Psalm 23 and the entire Bible. So let's just read it together if you'd like. If you don't want to, if you want to listen, let's rock and roll here. All right, so Psalm 23 from the NIV. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Psalm 23, right there, live here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as it's 12:20 Eastern. And I think about the Lord's house. I mean, some people believe it's the actual building. Some people believe you can pray in secret, and I believe in both. You pray wherever you want to pray, you know. But it's really that moment of his presence when you really connect with him and meet with God. Just like Jesus kind of showed us as an example how to meet with God. He went up to the mountain and prayed by himself with nobody else around. So the reason why I'm just saying this again, just for context, because if you just started watching, you're like, what the heck is this? It's not a religious channel, but we are in a way because we are a faith-based group here too, you know. So it's great to be able to speak about our freedom of religion here at Right Side. But the point, just final point, is in getting that strength, getting that encouragement, getting that power from God by just simply meeting with him. And that is the greatest commandment, to love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself. So if you're loving God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and seeking him and bowing before him and all the things that you see in the Bible, you're on the right track. That's the spiritual side of things. Then you got to learn a bunch of life lessons too. But once you learn both, you might be on track. You might be onto something. But still, you could still get saved regardless. You saw what happened with Jesus on the cross. The guy next to him, who was a robber, said, remember me when you go to paradise. And that's what Jesus said, that he would remember him. And the other guy was scoffing at Jesus. So even at the last second, things can turn around. God is an 11th hour God sometimes. All right, let's pivot out of that, which I would love to keep talking about that stuff. But let's pivot to a leader that loves God, I believe, and he definitely does, and was protected by God back in the day out there in Butler, Pennsylvania. Somebody I believe has a personal connection with God, and that's Donald J. Trump. So let's look at some more of yesterday's great speech at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Let's go ahead and take a look.
We have a big day in Washington, D.C. A lot of people said, we don't want to do that. I say, yeah, we do. We want to show off a little bit. Recently, other countries celebrated the victory of World War I. France was celebrating, really. They were all celebrating. The only one that doesn't celebrate is the USA, and we're the ones that won the war. Without us, you'd all be speaking German right now. Maybe a little Japanese thrown in. But we won the war, and we don't celebrate, but we're going to celebrate on Saturday, and we're going to celebrate from now on. We're going to celebrate our greatness and our achievements. This week we honor 250 years of valor and glory and triumph by the greatest fighting force ever to walk the face of the earth, the United States Army. For 2.5 centuries, our soldiers have marched into the raging fires of battle and obliterated America's enemies. There's never been anything like it. There's never been a force like this. And I rebuilt it. I gave you so much money for 4 years. It was crazy. And we just approved our largest budget for military operations, over $1 trillion. We've never even come close. But our army has smashed foreign empires, humbled kings, toppled tyrants, and hunted terrorist savages through the very gates of hell. Our soldiers do not rest until they win. You know that better than anybody. From June 1775 to June 2025, those foolish enough to challenge America's army have been met with unyielding strength, unbreakable spirit, and unstoppable, overwhelming force. Time and again, our enemies have learned that if you dare to threaten the American people, American soldier will chase you down, crush you, and cast you into oblivion. That's what happens, unfortunately. Doesn't sound.
So the president yesterday, of course, talking about celebrating, and we know that June 14th will be a huge celebration. For those of you just joining us, of course, this is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks for streaming in as it's almost the bottom of the hour here. We're going to talk to America First Policy Institute's Carla Sands, who also is doing great things for the country. That'll be coming up in just a second. But speaking of celebrating, we're going to go one more clip to Fort Bragg to close up our Fort Bragg coverage. Even though it's happened yesterday, still that 24/7 news cycle. It's always good to highlight some of the things that happened, especially if you weren't able to check it all out. So let's go back to Fort Bragg one more time, because sometimes when things got you down, all you got to do is dance a little bit, right? You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about all the different kind of dance moves that are out there back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever. And still, Donald Trump comes up with his own. I mean, come on. You'd think every kind of move is out there has already been done. But no, there's President Trump reinventing the wheel like he does so well. It's great to see it. What a fun time yesterday. How awesome was that when the Army was just cheering loud and chanting USA. Pretty cool stuff. All right, before we get you a live picture to the White House press briefing, which is not started yet, but we do have a live picture. We'll show that to you in a second. Before we get to Carla Sands as well, let's go to All Family Pharmacy. President Trump just released, of course, or recently signed a new executive order to lower prescription drug prices. It's a major step in the right direction, but All Family Pharmacy, they're not waiting around. They actually are saying, well, let's drop our prices to 20% off up until June 30th. So you're talking more than 200 essential medications, including ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, antibiotics, and your everyday prescriptions as well. You'll all get it with a doctor's prescription included. So no insurance, no waiting room, just fast, reliable access to the medications every household should have stock. So All Family Pharmacy actually works with licensed doctors in all 50 states, and they ship the prescriptions directly to your door. So if drug prices are finally coming down, this pharmacy is already leading the charge in helping people stay prepared. So all you have to do is go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN 20 promo code, and you'll get that 20% off. All right, so bottom of the hour, 12:28, Wednesday, June 11th. And what we can do next is go to, hopefully we'll be going there, to the White House press briefing room. As soon as we see Karoline Leavitt step into that room, we'll take it live. Of course, still about 32 minutes until the scheduled start time for the press conference. So as soon as we see all of the media filter in there, and then, of course, when that blue door opens on the left, and we see her come out there, we will go there live to hear from the great Karoline Leavitt. About 12:30 now, so we'll be joined by America First Policy Institute's Carla Sands in just a minute. Be looking forward to talking with her and just hearing her thoughts on everything that's going on in the 24/7 news cycle. And also, so you don't have to hear my voice for the entire time, which it's all right to hear that sometimes, but I like to hear from other people, including live right here. That's why I've been tossing to a lot of President Trump's great speech from yesterday. And you know, a lot of times we do work to line up a number of great interviews here on Right Side, including with the great Carla Sands, who joins us live right now. So you have a new title at America First Policy Institute. Can you tell us what that is and what that entails?
Absolutely. It is the brand new America First Foreign Policy Initiative, and it is about creating a coalition around the world of nations who are not going to kowtow to the globalist agenda, but will do the right thing by their citizens, secure their borders, make sure that there's human flourishing within their country, that they're not, signing on to the net zero agenda that is anti-human, and also that they're going to have affordable energy, that they're going to support the family. And I was just in Hungary recently talking at CPAC in Hungary, and what they talked about is God, nation, and family, and how the order is natural and it's important. I kind of reverse it and I talk about God, family, country, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's about priorities, and the priorities of God, putting God front and center first in our lives, taking care of our families, taking care of our country. And if more business owners would think that way, we would have flourishing middle class when we know that the wages have really been flat for the last 20 plus years. It's not right. President Trump and now Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent are really riding that ship, and they're saying we're going to take care of Main Street.
Exactly, and that's what they're doing, standing for we the people. Let's talk about America First Policy Institute, because, we look at Brooke Rollins now leading the Department of Ag. We look at Linda McMahon at the Department of Education. Yes. We see that you're advancing at AFPI around the world. America First Policy Institute, can you talk to us about the genesis of this? How did this get started? And, really what is the mission for it? Is it really just basically, hey, let's have common sense policies throughout the world and not the globalist way?
Well, Matthew, how it started was that Brooke Rollins worked for President Trump in his first administration, and she had all these ideas for the second term, and then we know what happened in 2020. And so before the Trump administration left the White House, she said to a small group around her, Linda McMahon, Larry Kudlow, President Trump knew, and a few others, trusted people at the White House, she said, I don't want to let these great America First policies die, because oftentimes you start over in a new administration and you don't keep the great policies going and building. The left does it. They never rest. But the right kind of closes up shop and then they open up shop again with the next administration. She was determined to continue it. And so when I heard about her idea in early 2021, after I came home from serving in Denmark as the ambassador, I got really excited, but I was planning to probably run for the Senate in Pennsylvania right after I came home. So as soon as that race ended, I joined AFPI, knowing that I had really found a home with like-minded patriots, people that love God, love their country, love their family. And it's so wonderful to work with people like that. And a lot of the people from AFPI 1.0 before this past election, they've gone into the administration. And so now we're bringing in a new AFPI 2.0 and saying, how can we support these great policies? And the entire administration of the president and the cabinet's efforts from the outside, like many nonprofits do on the left, they're very active. We've never created a really strong, determined ecosystem on the right. And so that's what is being built by AFPI. Brooke Rollins calls it a battle tank for 100 years. And I like that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then also you were the ambassador to Denmark under the first Trump administration. You also, during the campaign, were working alongside the vice president's team out there, speaking on behalf of the vice president. You spoke in Pennsylvania before President Trump's rallies. For you, Carla, what is it like for you personally to know that you're actually making a difference for humankind, mankind?
It's what I'm devoting my time and my treasure to is saving our country. And it's really not about me. I've had an incredible life. It's about the kids. It's about the young people, that they had the same opportunity that I had, because I really saw it going away. I saw us losing America that I love, and I saw us becoming kind of, I'm going to use one of President Trump's terms, a socialist hellhole. I just saw it happening. I was in Los Angeles for 30 years. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I had married and had a family there. And to have to leave that place because it's just changed so dramatically because of leftist leadership. And then to see what's happening with the anarchists and the rioting happening there under Gavin Newsom, the governor, and Karen Bass, the mayor, it's unbelievable that these leftists are implementing their plan for communist revolution. This is the plan.
Exactly, and exactly what we're seeing out there happen. 26 attorney generals, Republicans across this country, are standing with President Trump and saying, you know what, we want law and order restored. The Department of Homeland Security putting out videos. We, the people, the majority of this country, more than 100 million, maybe 150 million, who knows, 200, who knows the number. It's common sense to have law and order. And again, Carla, let's talk about the genesis of the situation in Los Angeles. I was tracking it really closely with all the different social media videos and that kind of thing. But the point is that they were protesting and then got in the way physically of the ICE deportation operation in front of the ICE agents. And then let me look at President Trump's Truth Social post just to bring the point home. And I want to get your reaction on this because of Gavin Newsom's lies yesterday, a speech that he shared. It was awful. President Trump said if troops didn't go into Los Angeles, it would be burning to the ground right now, just like so much of their housing burned to the ground from the wildfires, right? The great people of Los Angeles are very lucky that I made a decision to go in. He also said this, the incompetent governor of California was unable to provide protection in a timely manner when our ICE officers, great patriots they are, were attacked by an out-of-control mob of agitators, troublemakers, and/or insurrectionists. And then the president said, "Make America Great Again." So that's the genesis. They got in front of, physically stopped these guys from doing their job, which was a law-abiding thing to do. And that's how it started. So I don't know how they're trying to spin that, but I guess that's what it's par for the course, isn't it?
It is. So these are anarchists. They're sometimes paid and sometimes just radical, but their funders are millionaires and billionaires who want communist revolution in America. And it's very organized, all of this resistance. And they plan to do it across the country. That's why I love that President Trump, our law and order president, is restoring order on the streets of Los Angeles because he has to quell this radical eruption. Otherwise, we'll see more pop up across the country. He has to stop them before they get going. And I was in Los Angeles in 1992 for the Rodney King riots. I was terrified that, they pulled an innocent man from a truck, beat him almost to death, and then just anarchy started throughout the entire city. And I remember the Korean business owners standing on the roofs of their businesses with shotguns, loaded shotguns, to shoot anyone who would try to come and take their livelihood. And how Los Angeles has changed from property owners being able to defend their property to now with the radical laws that Gavin Newsom has implemented statewide, and then Karen Bass, who is a communist in other names. The fact that they have implemented their leftist agenda, making it impossible, literally contravening United States law, when it is the federal law, the right to implement the immigration laws and to enforce them. It's not the states' rights. There are many issues that are states' rights issues. Immigration is not one. That is a federal issue. So President Trump and ICE, Homeland, they have the right to quell the riots and to take any illegal out of the country. They're not supposed to be here. And if they have a green card, but they're participating in a riot, or they're even a naturalized citizen, but participating in a riot, according to the law, ICE has the right to remove them from the country. You can't just come into our country and try to disrupt it or create chaos and say, I hate this country. Then you can't stay. That's how it is. We welcome people that want to love our country, learn our laws, assimilate, not be acting as if they're still in their home country. I'm thinking of the Somalians up in the tri-state area and tri-city area, how when I was there, I felt like I was in a foreign country. They have not assimilated. Well, that is part of the pathway to become a citizen. So I'm very excited that President Trump and his great team have called in the National Guard and now even the Marines. That sends a clear signal, stop it. And if they begin to arrest the funders for funding illegal activity, that will also send a clear signal that you can't fund anarchy in our streets. That's not peaceful protests. And no matter what some of the legacy media were saying last night about, or the last few days even, about peaceful protests, yeah, not so peaceful. That is absolutely disinformation.
Yeah, disinformation, misinformation, all of that is on the left side of the aisle there, and it's unbelievable to see it. Specifically to your point, did you see that one video where a guy pulls up in a pickup truck in Los Angeles, has huge boxes of riot masks and gear and all sorts of stuff, literally handing it out? You mean to tell me that that guy went by himself, and I'm going to go to Home Depot or wherever Home Depot, go to Home
Walmart.
Depot. Huh? What's
from
that?
Walmart. They're
Okay.
from Walmart.
That's right. That's what people were saying about that too. The fact
Yes.
is, but that debit card being charged, do you think somebody's just going to buy that for all these people, and it's not, that money's not coming in from somebody else? Like, what's going on with that specific situation? But the question I have for you though is, on that 30,000-foot view, is this just simply the reformation of America happening right before our eyes?
Yeah, Matthew, that is a huge question. I don't know the answer, but I know that they've identified the guy that was bringing those masks in from Walmart. And I know that one of the Walmart heiresses is actually funding that No King's Day on the 14th of June, President Trump's birthday, where he's having a big military celebration in Washington, D.C. How exciting. Whenever I've been in a foreign country and they have those planes fly over and they show off their equipment, my heart beats because it's exciting to see, the greatness of our military. And so I'm thrilled he's doing this. And if there are disruptions, I hope that they put them down very strongly, because we can't have what happened in the summer of 2020 with the looting and the rioting throughout our country, the burning of businesses, and the loss of so many people lost their livelihood, and then the killing of people, even in uniforms. So thank God that President Trump, a strong law and order president, is in the White House today.
Exactly. And speaking of that, Director, and Carla, if you could please hold for a second. Director, are we able to throw to the soundbite of President Trump at the Oval Office talking about Los Angeles, talking about Minnesota, talking about the National Guard? Are we able to do that? All right, let's go to that video from the president just yesterday talking about, hey, you know what? This is the reason why I did this.
You have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down 7 days, and I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, a total, you talk about an incompetent governor, he's an incompetent person. That he was picked, well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. And we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it. But that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the...
Okay, so the president from just yesterday, of course, speaking about the reasons why he sent the National Guard. Let's shift gears. Let's pivot over to the big, beautiful bill. We see so many great things in it. Also, within that framework, the president understands, and so does the whole staff there, that balancing the budget is important. Just same thing. It's just for our country's sake, to drop taxes, to increase security on the border, to finish the wall. So many reasons why the Senate should pass it.
It's so true. They have to pass the big, beautiful bill. And now we have a Senate that's more conservative than the House. So it could be that they want to spend a little less money than the House. That's always welcome. But we know that our country is spending too much money, that the spending levels have ratcheted up so shockingly high since COVID. Before COVID 2019, the spending wasn't that out of control, and we were on a good path. Now we're on a path that's unsustainable. We have to deal with it. There's rescissions and things like that that the House is dealing with now to claw some of that money back that was spent during President Biden's term. But the big, beautiful bill has to pass. And why? Because we have to secure our border. The funding is in there because we have to get a tax cut for all Americans. And the middle class is going to really benefit from that. Otherwise, they will have the highest tax increase in the history of our country. This president and this House will not let that happen. So please, Senate, pass the big, beautiful bill. Make the changes you need to make. House, please work with the Senate. I know that those expensive states like California and New York want those carve-outs for those, high earners because of the state taxes are so high. That's a terrible thing, but we can't solve that right now. What we have to do is pass the bill. And I hope going forward that the House will have less pork in their bills. It's really out of control. Elon Musk is right about one thing. It's outrageous how much money that the House is spending. And so I hope that as we go on, that they will do a better job. As fiscal conservators of our money. They're the people that decide where the money is spent. And I don't think that they're always putting the American people first. So let's pass the bill and let's do better going forward.
Amen to that. Also, talking about money in the bill, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Anybody making $30,000 to $80,000 a year, it's a 13% drop in the taxes. So that's going to be nice to see that. And then also on top of it, Carla, is the aviation overhaul, the whole system, being overhauled. And how about the Golden Dome for America? There's just a lot of really big things for our country within the bill.
Yes, it's so exciting that we're going to have something like Israel has, but bigger and modern. The Golden Dome, President Trump has promised to get it done during his presidency. That means they're working at warp speed, and it's going to be made in America. That means we're going to have a lot of good ships. I'm sure it's going to be highly technical. But then he also promised, Matthew, $1,000 in a savings account for every new baby born in America. And then parents can put tax-free up to $5,000 a year into an account that child can have to pay for their education, pay for a new house when they graduate, whatever that parent and child decide is prudent. But that's a really exciting thing, that children will have this nest egg instead of debt when they leave their parents' home. So I'm excited about that too. So many good things in this bill. I love that he's going to make flying great again. Newark Airport will hopefully not have to shut down over and over because of old, out-of-date equipment. And just talking about that, like having worked in government in President Trump's first term, the computers, the programs were all so old and janky, you wouldn't have this stuff in your home. And so why would we have it in our government where we should have the best and the greatest so that the people working there can be highly productive? And so I'm excited too that we have these very sophisticated tech folks that are helping to renew and rejuvenate the 40 and 50-year-old programs and the old clunky computers that we're working with.
Exactly. The Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, doing a great job understanding what needs to be done, things that were passed on from the Biden administration, things that were starting to wear and tear, and they didn't do anything about it. Now then we're left with the problem, but he's working on it, President Trump aware of it, and that again is part of the big, beautiful bill. Carla Sands, America First Policy Institute, thank you so much for spending the time with us here on Right Side.
Thanks a lot, Matthew. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. All right, so 12:48, Wednesday, June 11th, as we get ready for the press conference there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House, right near the West Wing, not too far from the Oval Office, kind of adjacent to the Eisenhower Executive Office building, and also right outside that room there is the spot where that's that White House stakeout spot where the microphones are, usually where you see the world leaders pull up and President Trump waves. It's literally right out the door to the right of the camera there. But anyway, so enough inside baseball on the room there, but we are looking forward to seeing Karoline Leavitt today at about 11 minutes from now. So thanks again for streaming in live. Also, later today at 6 o'clock Eastern, the President and the First Lady will be attending an event at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. We'll have live coverage right here at 6 o'clock. Robert McNeely will be here hosting that. So we look forward to that coverage coming up in a bit. Producer, can you please repeat? All right, let's go to some sponsors, including angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas. You've got the Miracle Cream and a number of other great sponsors or products on there. Angelpaste.com. Use the RSBN promo code for a percentage off. Give this a try. It's something that, you see the product and you might not really just go for it. Just give it a shot. Angelpaste.com. And then you can use that RSBN promo code. Again, they hire military veterans out of the great Lone Star State, Spring, Texas. A great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, we have about 10 minutes until the press conference there in Washington, D.C. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks again for streaming in. Let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Great to see Mike Lindell lifting him up in prayer during his court situation that's happening. But still, a man that stands on the right side of history, as you know. Looking live there right now at the press briefing room, getting ready to see Karoline Leavitt. It's always great that the Office of White House Communications, they pray right before they come out to that press briefing room. Kind of cool that they go to God and ask him for his help and guidance, but also just his presence to be sensed there, even at the White House. Can you believe that there's a White House faith office? There's a White House faith office. It's pretty awesome that President Trump would have something like that there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Great to see it, and great to have a historic president, a historic win, overcoming all of the odds. You remember back in, I think it was April 4th of 2023, was when all the lawfare started. It was in New York. Remember, there was even a mini rally in Manhattan. I mean, you look back at just that all the way through. And then how about even in the first administration, all of the hoaxes and all that stuff? Talk about somebody that knows how to overcome. Also has God on his side. I really believe it, and I know that many, many millions of people across this country agree with that. Probably more than 100 million. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I should start doing some polls. I don't know how to reach everybody, but well, maybe this is a good way to do it here on Right Side, which you should tell your friends and family about as a big solution to the mainstream media, bogus, boring junk that they keep lying to you about over there. You have a solution to it. You have conservative media. And of course, Rush Limbaugh really kicking it all off, the great Rush Limbaugh doing that, and all of us, including myself, listening to that voice, but also someone that was a true conservative. And then you had President Trump come in and be like, well, these guys are fake news, you're fake news. during that first administration. Then you'd watch President Trump during all the debates, and you're like, man, this guy's entertaining, but he's also on point. I like him. And then he won. How many elections did President Trump win? That's the million-dollar question. Not really. He won 3 of them. He won 3 elections. Pretty simple stuff. Anyway, 4 minutes until the great press conference is about to happen. And that, you don't usually, as a journalist, you don't say that there's a press conference and it's going to be a great press conference. But you know what? When Karoline Leavitt's in there, it's a great press conference. How on point is that person? She's great for that job there. And also, if you remember back in the day, just campaign trail, rally events that we saw President Trump, Karoline was with MAGA Inc. then, really as a part of the campaign in a way too. And we would interview her, and she was always on point. You remember she was running for office in New Hampshire. I saw her on some of the other national outlets before, and I'm like, she's on point. And then I think about somebody else that's on point, Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller has gone from, not as much of a household name. I'm talking about maybe over the past few years, but a very, very big household name now. We kept hearing about all those rallies and those campaign stops, and we're like, that guy's awesome. He can really make it happen. He articulates truth in such a way that you really can't argue with it. You just can't. How do you argue with Stephen Miller? I would not ever want to get into a debate with him. But the thing is, I don't have to, because I agree with what he's saying. Because I'm like, yeah, you're right. That, same thing with President Trump. I mean, we've got great people that articulate what's happening in our country. All kind of being jovial aside and joking aside. I'm being serious about it. Like, we've got a very serious situation in our country, even though we still have time to see great things like yesterday, President Trump doing the Trump dance at Fort Bragg and all the soldiers cheering for that and chanting USA. We have some light times, and then we enjoy our lives, hopefully, our friends, our family, sporting events, concerts, whatever, those kind of things out there. Going to church, and Bible studies, whatever. We have life. But we also see on that one section of life things like Los Angeles, or people like Tim Walz or Nancy Pelosi and on, Cory Booker, blah, 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 Hakeem Jeffries, blah. Like these people that just, if they were on the right side of history, I'd be like, go Hakeem, go Cory, go Nancy, go Tim Walz, go, but they're just not. The words that they're speaking, Newsom and these guys, Karen Bass, just not speaking truth. So it's just simple as that. It's, do you stand on the right side of history or are you on the wrong side of history? It's common sense stuff, and you're hearing common sense. Tell it like it is today, as it's Wednesday, June 11th. Hopefully you have some good plans this summer. I know my family and I do. We won't say where we're going. I don't share all those kind of things, but we're looking forward to various trips. And I hope that you guys will be able to make it out there to the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific, the Gulf of America, the lakes, and just go for a hike. I texted Father Frank Pavone just yesterday, who we're going to have on the broadcast coming up, hopefully this week. He was actually in Grand Junction, Colorado just the other day at a church there talking about Pentecost. And Grand Junction, Colorado, if you've never been, I actually used to live in that area, worked in Colorado as a local news reporter. The point is, Grand Junction is one of my favorite places on earth, and I've been around different places around the world and across this country, but something about Colorado and the gorgeous scenery that's there, western Colorado on the western slope of the Rocky Mountains, and then you've got the Utah border right there with Arches National Park. It is a gem. If you've ever traveled out there, it's absolutely gorgeous. On the other side of the coin, though, with Colorado, free Tina Peters. Free Tina Peters. President Trump saying it, the MAGA movement saying it. And the MAGA movement isn't just, it's just not the word MAGA, it's freedom or conservative or, right? Liberty. It's all these things all at once. We all say in unison to free Tina Peters with the situation that she's undergone in Colorado. So anyway, it is the top of the hour, 1 o'clock. Thanks for joining us right now live. Let's go to a couple sponsors as we await Karoline Leavitt there, callshe.com/RSBN. So if you'd like to bet or trade on all kinds of things, you have a great company to do that with, callshe.com, science, technology, sports, maybe the NHL right now. It's the Edmonton Oilers against the Florida Panthers. So it's the USA versus Canada, which is kind of cool. I really like hockey, and go Panthers. Even though Connor McDavid on the Oilers is a captain, he's really, really good. But I still would like to see the Cup be skated around in Florida once again. You remember the Florida Panthers went to the White House just a few months back with that great coverage with Robert McNeely. But that's beside the point. Let's get back to Kalshi.com, as there's a lot of great places to bet and trade, and Kalshi is one of them right there, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Also, if you need to settle back taxes, Tax Network USA, great spot to do it. 800-357-1415, TNUSA.com/RSBN is the website. You got all the information you need right there to settle back taxes. They'll take you along that path for that financial freedom. So if you have a few of those years that you maybe just missed a payment or missed a year, this group will help you get everything taken care of. Great Patriots at Tax Network USA. And speaking of great patriots, we'll see one here soon, Karoline Leavitt. And also, it's Patriot Day in America. I'm just calling it that for Saturday, June 14th. Usually it's Rally Day in America because we've seen all these great rallies across our country. But in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, as Robert calls it, the federal city. I know it's called that too, as one of the names for it, but he's been saying the federal city, and it's true. I mean, we're going to have a great live event there when we see the 250th celebration for the United States Army. Again, Robert McNeely there live coming up in D.C. So we'll have that coverage coming up this Saturday. Of course, Flag Day, President Trump's birthday, it all fell together that June 14th is the day. So we'll have that coverage here for you. Also, speaking of Robert McNeely, he'll be here live at 6 o'clock to cover President Trump and the First Lady's trip to the Kennedy Center tonight for the event there. They're going to see Les Mis, so that's happening. We'll start our coverage at 6 o'clock. And then tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Eastern, the debut of Robert's show, The Voice of Reason, is happening tomorrow at 6 o'clock. You can see it right there. So that will be great to see the debut show tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Also, if you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network, of course, we have a lot of different things going on here at the network, a lot of live feeds, a lot of shows, and all that kind of stuff going on. Well, you can watch it for free on various sites, including Rumble, but obviously it takes money to do it. So I'm just going to be straight up about that. Text RSBN to 801-801. So simply text RSBN to 801-801 if you'd like to put your money into actual conservative media right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Texting RSBN to 801-801, as it's just about 3 minutes after the hour. The press room there, the briefing room, now packed. So looking forward to hearing what Karoline has to say. And then, of course, we'll be wrapping our coverage after the press briefing, as long as there's no breaking news that happens. And then at 6 o'clock, we'll be back at it here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Just to go through a couple of the headlines that we talked about at the top of the broadcast, which was about 2 hours and 4 minutes ago. The Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security, posted a video, and the White House reposted it as well. So since that just happened, I believe we have a minute to show that video all about Los Angeles. And before we play it, in the headline of the X account, it said, "Restore law and order now." So I want us to think about restore law and order now when you watch this. Richard Grinnell on Truth Social an hour ago posted something, and President Donald Trump, the leader of the free world, the law and order president, the people's president, the common sense president, how many more adjectives do you need? Because this is what Richard Grinnell said. This is what President Trump literally just reposted on Truth Social. Thank God, this is from Richard Grinnell. Thank God, at Real Donald Trump, acted quickly to send in more law enforcement officials to Los Angeles. He saved us. The riots would have gone on for days with hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. Gavin Newsom has now rushed to the San Francisco courts, not Los Angeles, to find the most left-wing judges to play politics. That from Richard Grinnell, President Trump speaking about all of this as well on Truth Social earlier today, if you want to check out some more of his posts, as it's 6 minutes after the hour here on Right Side. You see a number of the press just getting to their seats there, so looking forward to bringing you there live right here on Right Side. Again, this is RSBN Live, all brought to you by a number of great sponsors. We'll have more of our great sponsors that we'll be talking about in the 6 o'clock hour when Robert McNeely's in studio and talking about the great event tonight at the Kennedy Center. President Trump and the First Lady will be attending an event there, so we'll have coverage here starting at 6 p.m. So 1:06 Eastern right now. We can page through some of President Trump's other posts. He says, if our troops didn't go into Los Angeles, it would be burning to the ground right now, just like so much of their housing burned to the ground, referring to the wildfires there. No water and hydrants and all. That was terrible as well, right? The great people of Los Angeles are very lucky that I made a decision to go in and help. And I know you may know, some people in Los Angeles to this day that are conservative, MAGA, straight up for our country, on the right side of history. But wow, just imagine having to live through that in Southern California. I was thinking about the different cities in California. Of course, San Francisco and Los Angeles not doing good. San Diego is one that's really great, in my opinion. I really like San Diego. I know a lot of you may have been there too. And you know, we've got some great military installations there, and it's a very patriotic town around it and someone in it. But the problem there, of course, is the homelessness problem, and hopefully that's on its way out. And then also being right next to Tijuana, which right there along the border. Now that border, though, is very secure along the southern border because we have our military there. We have Customs Border Protection agents doing a great job there. Sometimes some of those boats from Mexico will go around Point Loma. If you look at there's actually pictures out there of the southern border wall that goes all the way, it literally goes into the water, into the ocean. It's just pretty fascinating to see the wall there, which will be fully complete if the big, beautiful bill passes, but that's beside the point. So that is where some of those they call them alien vessels, illegal alien vessels, these boats with 14 or 15 illegal aliens on there from any country, bringing in either narcotics or human trafficking or illegally just entering the country. So our Coast Guard, shout out to the Coast Guard, shout out to the Navy, and shout out to the Customs Border Protection patrol agents that all go out there on these boats as well. And sometimes the Navy will bring out their bigger ships, and then they'll have some of the Coast Guard and others go in the smaller boats and just go and take care of business. What a job that is to be out there doing that. Holy smokes, man. Really stopping the influx of all that craziness we saw. I remember all those caravans we saw with Joe Biden and his administration, with everybody coming across the border. Well, that has all but stopped at this point. So now it's next in line is the mass deportations. This is not coming out of just thin air. President Trump didn't just say, okay, now let's do this. No. If you look at the 20 core promises, number one to the American people, this is from the RNC platform, the president's platform, months ago. And number one was to seal the border. Okay, check. Number two is have the largest deportation operation in American history. Not check yet, but on the way. It's the reformation of our country happening right now. I mean, it's really happening. The corruption is on its way out. The good stuff that makes us healthy on the way in. And that's how you save America and make America great again. So we're seeing it every day, one day at a time. Kind of like it's slow and steady wins the race, right? Sometimes, you know, in life you want to hurry up and get there. And I know that I've done that before. Man, I want to get there. But you know what? Slow and steady wins the race. Another thing you learn in life, right? Life's a classroom, so you'll get there. And so that's what's happening with our country. So a big, beautiful bill is a part of that. As Carla Sands said, and I echo her and Elon Musk when it comes to having a balanced budget. We don't want to have any kind of financial collapse. We understand that. We know that the president has that on his mind as well. He doesn't want that to happen, and there's going to be ways that Congress and everybody has to work to that end, that won't happen. But this big, beautiful bill will cut the taxes, will bring us the entire wall, will bring us no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, a 13% tax decrease for those making anywhere from $30,000 to $80,000. So there's many things in that will really bring the golden age of America all the way through. And speaking of gold, the Golden Dome for America for missile defense. So there's a million things that we see in that thing that is really good for we the people. And these were all campaign promises that we saw from President Trump over all those rallies. If you just kind of go into the memory bank a little bit and think about all those times, whether it was myself or Robert McNeely or Christina Loren or Megan Kohler, live out there in X, Y, and Z city all across this land, interviewing we the people, them saying, hey, we want you to take care of the illegal immigration situation, take care of the economy. We want our constitutional rights to stay here. President Trump's the guy to do it. And then on top of that, he hires a number of cabinet leaders that are all patriots and doing a great job. We still, of course, want to see not only law and order, but justice be served in various ways around our country, especially to those that did any illegal activity over the past 4 years and maybe beyond. But that's for a legal expert to sound off about. But yeah, so we remember those days at all of these rallies and all of these great speeches. So that really fueled this movement back in 2015 when Right Side Broadcasting Network started out covering President Trump. It was simple. It was a smaller camera. I wish we could have Joe Seals on someday and he could just talk to us about all these details of how it really started. But from what I gather, it was a small camera that we started posting on Facebook Live. And then before you know it, years have passed, 10 years this summer, since the grassroots move of Joe Seals and the team at Right Side started. And we saw a win in 2016. We saw the president get inaugurated in 2017. And then we saw a win in 2020, a huge landslide win in 2020. But something happened there, of course, that caused that not to actually happen. And then we see another win this past, November of being too big to rig. So that's what we see. And we tell it like it is here because that's how President Trump does it. That's how Rush Limbaugh did it. Let's go to Karoline Leavitt, who also does it well.
Good to see you all. What we have seen transpire in Los Angeles, California in recent days is shameful. Left-wing radicals waving foreign flags viciously attacked ICE and Border Patrol agents as well as Los Angeles police officers. These criminals injured police, threw rocks at police cars and officers, burned vehicles, shut down freeways, and lobbed Molotov cocktails, all because the Trump administration was removing violent criminal illegal aliens from the city. These attacks were aimed not just at law enforcement, but at American culture and society itself. Rioters burned American flags, chanted "Death to ICE," and spray-painted anti-American slogans on buildings. But President Trump will never allow mob rule to prevail in America. The most basic duty of government is to preserve law and order, and this administration embraces that sacred responsibility. Democrats like Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass shamefully failed to meet their sworn obligations to their citizens. They didn't have the courage to do the right thing and protect law-abiding Californians from rioters. That's why President Trump deployed the National Guard and mobilized Marines to end the chaos and restore law and order. The mob violence is being stomped out. The criminals responsible will be swiftly brought to justice. And the Trump administration's operations to arrest illegal aliens are continuing unabated. When the initial immigration enforcement actions took place on June 6th, Mayor Bass took to social media to say she was deeply angered by what has taken place. Mayor Bass then embarked on one of the most outrageous campaign of lies this country has ever seen from an elected official, blaming President Trump and brave law enforcement officers for the violence. She accused heroic American immigration and customs enforcement officers targeting illegal alien murderers, rapists, and pedophiles of, quote, sowing terror in communities and disrupting basic principles of safety in our city. Around the same time, Governor Newsom claimed that immigration enforcement actions were causing chaos. That's how radical Democrats have become. Their opposition to President Trump has forced them to side with illegal alien criminals in their communities and violent rioters and looters over law enforcement officers who are just doing their jobs. Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom fanned the flames and demonized our brave ICE officers. Instead of defending their city and their state, Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom claimed that in order for the riots and the violence to stop, ICE needed to leave and immigration raids must end. In other words, the position of the Democrat Party is that the federal government is not allowed to enforce our laws and to arrest and deport illegal alien criminals. They're attempting to use a violent mob as a weapon against their own constituents to prevent the enforcement of immigration law. This is deeply un-American and morally reprehensible. President Trump received a clear mandate from voters to reverse the illegal invasion ushered in by Joe Biden's open border and to end the lawlessness represented by Karen Bass in Gavin Newsom's California. President Trump promised to carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history, and left-wing riots will not deter him in that effort. Sanctuary cities and states will no longer be allowed to shield illegal criminals from deportation. Just take a look at some of the illegal monsters who were taken off the streets in Los Angeles in recent days. A Vietnamese national, a known gang member with a conviction for second-degree murder. A Mexican national with convictions for child molestation who was armed with a dangerous weapon and had previous arrests for robbery and domestic violence. A Filipino national with convictions of rape, assault, burglary, and theft. A Mexican national convicted of statutory rape, narcotics violations, and hit and run. A Nicaraguan national with convictions for domestic violence and hit and run, and a previous arrest for willful cruelty to a child. And an illegal alien from Mexico who was arrested after allegedly throwing a Molotov cocktail at law enforcement officers during the Paramount riots on Saturday. He is now being charged with attempted murder. Law-abiding American citizens do not want these public safety threats living in their communities, no matter what Democrats like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom may claim. And let this be an unequivocal message to left-wing radicals in other parts of the country who are thinking about copycatting the violence in an effort to stop this administration's mass deportation efforts. You will not succeed. Any lawlessness will only strengthen this president's resolve to defend the majority of Americans who want to live their lives peacefully, free from the fear of violent criminal illegal aliens. As President Trump said, order will be maintained and illegal aliens will be expelled from our country. In economic news, the latest Consumer Price Index inflation report came in today below expectations again. Since President Trump took office, inflation has come in below economics expectations every single month. Core inflation held steady and remains at the lowest level since March of 2021. Wage growth remains strong. The average private sector worker is on track to see their real earnings increase by around $1,200 adjusted for inflation. And prices continue to fall for everyday Americans. Energy prices fell from April to May. Gasoline has fallen each month since President Trump took office, down 12% over the past year. And prices for meat, poultry, eggs, and fish are all down from April to May as well. Under President Trump's strong leadership, America is beating Joe Biden's record-high inflation crisis. And once the One Big Beautiful Bill passes, our economy will boom like never before. This bill is the largest tax cut for middle-class Americans in history. The One Big Beautiful Bill gives a 15% tax cut to working Americans and families. We'll see increased take-home pay of $10,000 per year. The One Big Beautiful Bill expands the child tax credit to $2,500 for more than 40 million American families with children. And the One Big Beautiful Bill cuts taxes for overtime workers, saving them nearly $2,000 per year, and ends taxes on tips, saving tipped workers nearly $2,000 per year as well. All of these provisions are broadly popular with an overwhelming support from the American people. We need Republicans in Congress to finish the job and send the One Big Beautiful Bill back to President Trump's desk for his signature as soon as possible. With that, we'll get to questions. I'm sure you have many of them today. Here in our new media seat is Elizabeth Mitchell, the White House correspondent for the Daily Signal, who's not afforded a seat in this room, but today she is. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I have two questions, if that's okay. First, a few Republicans on Capitol Hill are suggesting that President Trump scale back deportations, even as ICE is reportedly gearing up for raids in 5 more Democrat-led areas. Would anything dissuade President Trump, and would he consider sending in Marines if anti-ICE violence occurs in these cities?
Well, I think I may have just answered both of your questions with my opening monologue. The Trump administration is going to continue the mass deportation effort that the president promised the American public. Many of you were at those rallies in cities and communities across the country when the president spoke about his commitment to removing violent illegal criminals and anyone who has broken our nation's immigration laws from American communities. And God bless our ICE and Border Patrol who are working hard on that effort. This administration is going to continue that. And it's part of the reason we do need the one big beautiful bill to pass as well, may I add, because the bill provides funding to hire more ICE agents and Border Patrol agents, more personnel on the ground to conduct this important public safety work.
Thank you. And on another topic, President Trump has indicated that aides to former President Biden who used the auto pen to sign major orders and pardons should be investigated for potential crimes. Does he think that Biden allowing, or at least being negligently unaware of this activity, was an impeachable offense?
I haven't heard the president address whether it's an impeachable offense, but it could perhaps be a criminal offense, especially on behalf of staffers who may have been utilizing the president's signature without his authority or consent. I understand that Republicans on the Hill are moving in the right direction to call attention to this and to bring in some former White House staffers who clearly knew more than they ever shared and never addressed with the American public. And so we look forward to seeing where this investigation continues, and I know the Department of Justice is also looking into the matter as well. Alex, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Caroline. Thank you. You mentioned foreign flags being flown during these protests. There are protest activities being organized for this weekend. Part of it are Democrats saying they want to reclaim the American flag. It's also being titled No King's Day. Does the president see himself as a king, and does the White House expect to see American flags being flown during these protests this weekend?
The president views himself as the president of the United States of America. This is a constitutional republic, and we want to see all of our citizens be proud of the country in which they are given the privilege and the blessing to live. And I think that those images of foreign flags being waved with, by illegal criminals and by violent rioters in the face of cars blowing up and of flames in the city. I have photos of that here to show you. With this violence and destruction that occurred, is an image that Governor Gavin Newsom owns. This is his city, and President Trump saw these images, and he said that is not going to be accepted or tolerated, and hence why he deployed the National Guard and United States Marines who have helped to quell that violence.
If I can ask another. Sure. If the president does end up deploying any National Guard members, perhaps Marines, to blue states, would he be in contact with the governors prior to this? Would it be necessary?
Well, President Trump was in contact with Governor Gavin Newsom despite some of the claims he's made in the last couple of days. The president called the governor on Friday evening and told him to let law enforcement in California do their jobs. And the Los Angeles Police Department, by the way, are fantastic people. They are trying to do the work that they've so bravely signed up to do to enforce the law, but they have been kneecapped by incompetent Democrat policies and Democrat politicians who do not allow their local law enforcement to correspond and coordinate with federal immigration authorities. And so President gave Gavin Newsom a warning and said, get it together. 24 hours later, we saw more images like this. We heard about Border Patrol agents who were being the target of rocks. These illegal criminals were throwing rocks at our Border Patrol and ICE agents, and so the president made the decision to federalize California's National Guard. Stephanie.
Thank you. Two questions on the China trade deal, if I may. Sure. First, will the president formally sign the trade deal, and if so, when? Secretary Leavitt sort of alluded to the fact that it might be in a couple of days, but I'm curious if there's anything more specific to read out.
Sure. I do have more specifics for you. I spoke to the president about this. He spoke to his trade team, who did a fantastic job negotiating this on behalf of the United States and meeting with their Chinese counterparts. The president is talking to them about the details of it now. But what the president heard, he liked. China has agreed to open their markets to the United States separately of this deal. And when it comes to this deal, we're going back to the terms that were agreed upon in Geneva for the release of some of those critical minerals and the magnets from China to the United States. And we have agreed to fully comply with the Geneva Agreement as well. So the president is reviewing the details of that with his trade team now, and you'll hear more from him, I'm sure.
And then the second question, on tariffs, Secretary Leavitt suggested that the tariffs would remain unchanged with China. I'm wondering if there's any room for them to negotiate even lower, or if this is the floor.
I won't get ahead of any further negotiations. We're in a great place right now, and I would add that this is the result of a lot of hard work from the president and his team, and the president has a good and respectful relationship with President Xi, and as you know, they had a direct conversation which led to this success that the president announced on Truth Social this morning. JJ.
On North Korea, has the president tried to resume dialogue with Kim Jong-un? There's some reporting that the president sent a letter and tried to give it to Kim Jong-un through some North Korean diplomats through the UN, and they declined to take it and send it to Kim Jong-un.
The president remains receptive to correspondence with Kim Jong-un, and he'd like to see the progress that was made at that summit in Singapore, which I know you covered in 2018 during his first term. As for specific correspondence, I'll leave that to the president to answer. Sure.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thanks. Back to the trade deal negotiations with China. Jimmy Lai, as you know, is a pro-democracy advocate, Catholic, sitting in solitary confinement in Hong Kong as we speak. His family believes he may be close to death. Did his name come up, Jimmy Lai's name come up in these negotiations with China?
Not to my knowledge. I understand the negotiations were very much focused on our trade and economic relationship with China.
Does the president believe he can free Jimmy Lai from prison?
I will check with the president. It's certainly an important issue, and I'll get back to you.
Thanks, Caroline. The president said yesterday that paid insurrectionists were behind or involved in the protests in Los Angeles. Does the White House have any more details about who they believe is paying these protesters?
The president spoke about this last night when he returned from Fort Bragg, because frankly the president has a lot of common sense, and if you look at some of the imagery that we have received from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and law enforcement who are on the ground, you will see boxes and boxes of very professionalized masks and rioting equipment being dropped off for these protesters. So it's a good question the president is raising, and one we are looking into, about who is funding these insurrectionists and these rioters and these protesters and these illegal criminals. And I have updates for you on the numbers, by the way. Since June 6th, there have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions. And overall, and this includes arrests of American citizens, there's been 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction-related charges, including the attempted murder of a police officer with a Molotov cocktail. So who is funding these illegal aliens who are coming in with this very professional riot gear? It's a question everyone in this room who cares about truth should be asking. And we encourage your help in trying to get to the bottom of that question. Indina.
Thank you, Caroline. About Elon Musk, he issued an apology this morning. Has the president accepted the apology, or does he think it's too little too late?
The president acknowledged the statement that Elon put out this morning, and he is appreciative of it, and we are continuing to focus on the business of the American people.
And has the administration started a review of Musk's government contracts, something that the president said he's considering?
What do you mean by that?
Has the administration started a review of the contracts that Musk and his companies currently have?
No efforts have been made on that front as far as I'm aware.
And just one more, if I may, on just everything sort of we've seen so far with the president's response to the LA protests. There is criticism that seems to suggest that the president responded the way he did because it was a deliberate, calculated attempt to sort of shift focus away from his feud with Musk. How would you respond to that?
The president responded to the LA riots, condemning the violence
from Musk.
It's an incredibly disingenuous attack. The president saw images of Border Patrol and ICE agents being hailed with rocks and Molotov cocktails. He saw vehicles being burned to the ground with illegal aliens flying foreign flags, and that's what prompted the president to have this response that has clearly worked, because last night in Los Angeles you didn't see many of those images. And I would add the governor and the mayor need to actually do more. I know Gavin Newsom had a big address to the nation last night. I guess he thought that's what it was for maybe his future political ambitions, but he spoke a lot of words. We haven't seen action. California has been a mess for years because of the incompetence of Gavin Newsom, so the president was responding to that only. Caitlin.
Caroline, two questions for you.
Sure.
Over the weekend, Secretary Noem sent a memo to the Pentagon asking Secretary Hegseth to have and direct the military that's on the ground in LA to arrest and detain what she said were lawbreakers. Is the president okay with that? And under what authority would the members of the military be able to arrest people inside the United States?
I can't speak for a letter that came from the Department of Homeland Security. I can't speak for the president and what's currently happening on the ground now. And as you know, the president federalized the National Guard under U.S. Code 10, which he has the authority to do. And our United States Marines and the National Guardsmen and women who are on the ground right now are helping to create a peaceful environment for ICE and Border Patrol, who were being, again, hailed with rocks, who were being violently and viciously attacked. They needed reinforcements, and so our United States Marines who are on the ground are providing those reinforcements to ensure the environment is peaceful so that these raids and deportations can continue.
But he realizes they can't actually arrest people unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, which, I mean, seemingly was not something that was in Secretary Noem's memo, a clear distinction she did not make there.
Again, you're trying to conflate a letter that was sent to the Department of Homeland Security to the president's legal authority. The president understands the legal authority that he invoked, and that's the current situation right now.
When it comes to federalizing the National Guard, what is the specific criteria that the president is using for when he's deciding to do that, and in which states?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. He wants to see an end to the chaos and the violence. He doesn't want to see law enforcement officers being attacked. He wants to see peace. He wants law-abiding Californians to be able to bring their kids to school, to be able to go to work without seeing this violence in the streets. That's what the president's hoping for, and that's why he's taken this action. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Two questions on two separate topics. One has to do with the military parade taking place here in Washington this weekend. There's a lot of security around the White House complex, around the Capitol complex, even along the tidal basin. Is that just proactive? Are you expecting anything in particular in terms of unrest like we've seen in Los Angeles?
These are proactive security measures to protect those marching in the parade, many of whom will be veterans and our brave men and women in uniform and Gold Star families. There's going to be military families from around the country who are flying into this parade. And of course, it's to protect the spectators who will be enjoying this incredibly patriotic show on Saturday. And I hope you all join us there.
And then secondly, Secretary Pete Hegseth testified on the Senate side of the Capitol today.
Yes.
And he was asked about America's, the administration's view of Vladimir Putin's intentions. And specifically, it was asked whether or not his intentions go beyond, his territorial ambitions go beyond Ukraine. When that question was posed to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane replied that he does believe that his territorial ambitions go beyond Ukraine, but Secretary Hegseth says it's not clear at this point. How does the president view this issue?
The president has spoken on this. He said, as he calls it, he believes Ukraine was always the apple of Putin's eye. And he made it very clear to Putin in his first term not to invade Ukraine. Putin didn't invade Ukraine because of President Trump's peace through strength foreign policy agenda and the effective deterrence policies that he implemented in the first term. Unfortunately, because of the weakness and incompetence of the previous administration, Vladimir Putin made the decision to invade Ukraine. And now we have this brutal war, which the president is working very hard to end. Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Caroline. The president warned that any protests on Saturday would be met with force. Can you clarify what kind of protest President Trump does support or find acceptable?
The president absolutely supports peaceful protests. He supports the First Amendment. He supports the right of Americans to make their voices heard. He does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel.
Thank you so much, Caroline.
Raquel, and then I can go to you, Francis. Go.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I have two questions. One about Israel. Yesterday, the U.S. ambassador to Israel said the U.S. no longer is pursuing the goal of an independent Palestinian state. Can you confirm that the president is no longer supporting a two-state solution? And is President Trump considering diplomatic action against countries who takes action against Israel during next week's UN conference?
Right now, the president views the situation in Israel and Gaza as deeply unfortunate and needing to end. And the president is realistic about the current state of affairs in this region of the world. And that's why the president has said the number one focus and priority of the administration is to release all of the hostages from Gaza and to end this conflict as soon as possible. The administration is still pushing very hard for the release of all the hostages. And as for what happens next, clearly Gaza is an uninhabitable place. It needs to be rebuilt with the help of our Arab partners, and the president wants to see that happen as well. Take a couple
Just
more.
one on the G7 engagement. President Trump is traveling there on Sunday. Other presidents beyond the G7 leaders are also going. President Lula from Brazil, President Sheinbaum from Mexico, and President Zelensky from Ukraine are also going. Do you have confirmation if President Trump is meeting any other leaders on the sideline of the G7?
Yes.
To know about the Lula engagement in Lula.
I can confirm there will be quite a few bilateral meetings between the president and other foreign leaders. The White House is still working very hard to finalize that schedule, and we will provide that for you as soon as we have it.
Great. Thanks, Caroline. Just back to the China trade deal, can you talk about the status of the export controls that the U.S. imposed? Are those no longer being imposed?
We are fully complying with the Geneva Agreement. Go ahead. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. One foreign question for you and one domestic. The foreign, the president, of course, has said he would lift sanctions on Syria. Is there an executive order coming along soon to go do that? And is the president planning to try to get involved in any kind of a peace agreement between Israel and Syria that would disengage those two?
To the best of my knowledge, the Treasury Department took action after the president made that announcement in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. And then on the domestic side, you were just asked about the First Amendment rights issues. In the president's comments yesterday, though, he just said protesters would be strongly dealt with. In your list before, you referred to insurrectionists, rioters, and protesters together. Obviously, they're quite different from your earlier answer. I'm struck by the fact that the president has not at any point said the most important thing here is to protect the First Amendment rights of peaceful protesters. So I'm wondering, where in his hierarchy of interests does he place that? Is the First Amendment protection the most important? Is stopping violence most important? Why is he not out saying all peaceful protesters will be protected?
I think two things can be important at the same time. And the president, as I just answered, supports the right of Americans to peacefully protest. He supports the First Amendment. But that is not the majority of the behavior that we have seen taking place in Los Angeles. We have seen mobs of violent rioters and agitators assaulting law enforcement officers, assaulting our federal immigration authorities. And we have seen, as I said, this goes back to what this administration is trying to do and accomplish, and that's enforcing law and order in our nation's communities. And it's removing public safety threats from communities in Los Angeles.
You're saying the majority have not been peaceful, the majority have been violent.
I just read for you the arrest numbers. We've arrested nearly 400 illegal aliens alone, just illegal aliens who have been arrested in these riots since June 6th, since they began.
Thousands of people on the streets.
Yeah, and we've had hundreds of people who have assaulted law enforcement officers. Are you saying that that's that's appropriate behavior?
No,
Are you
no,
saying
I'm not
that
saying
the
that at all.
president
I'm
shouldn't
just
take
trying
action?
to figure out.
The Democrat governor and the Democrat mayor of Los Angeles have failed their citizens. And the majority of Americans, the majority of Californians, do not want to see law enforcement officers being assaulted in the streets. And thankfully, the president took action and stepped in to protect our federal law enforcement agents, to protect federal buildings, to protect the federal mission of deporting illegal criminals off of our streets. And that mission will continue every day as far as we're concerned. Thank you, guys.
Live from the White House there, watching live right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. What a great time there when it comes to Karoline Leavitt just saying the truth. You know, she just said that the California governor and the Los Angeles mayor have failed their citizens, and that's exactly what we've seen. You know, when you're a leftist like that and you just keep spewing lies, it's just not going to do any good. It's just not going to do any good because we have common sense on the right side of history, and that's really what we want here. Law and order. And as Caroline said, the majority of the country wants to see law and order there. And also, the majority of the country voted for President Trump, of course, November 5th, 2024. Within that framework were the 20 core promises to the American people on the campaign trail. Number one of the 20 core promises, to seal the border. Number two was the mass deportation operation that we're starting to see happen throughout our country. So this is something that isn't just out of left field. This has been something that's been discussed and talked about as the 20 campaign promises to the American people. Number 7 is defending the Constitution. Number 19, talking about secure and safe elections and on. So it's a great list that's out there. If you'd like to check it out, it's at Matthew Alvarez. I put it there just because it's such an important piece of policy, America First policy on Truth Social, at Matthew Alvarez, where it talks about those 20 core promises. I'm going to pin that, I was going to say tweet, but I'm going to pin that post here. So if you want to take a look, it's there. And I know a lot of you already know about it, but I think it's really the playbook of what we're seeing with the White House right now, which is all about we the people and our country and the Constitution. So, all right, at 6:30, the President and the First Lady will be attending an event at the Kennedy Center. At 6 p.m., we'll have live coverage right here on Right Side. Robert McNeely will be in studio for that. We'll have it for you then. If there's any breaking news from now until then, you can rely on us here at the channel live or always on Truth Social, X, our website, our app, all sorts of places. All of this brought to you by a number of great sponsors. We do want to thank quickly a number of sponsors, including allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN20 promo code for 20% off. We'll be talking more about this sponsor a bit later today, and also Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com/RSBN, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. All right, that wraps it up for us. For all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll see you at 6 o'clock right here on RSBN.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First news. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
You've heard how hard it can be to get access to medications like ivermectin, all the things they don't want you to take because they're actually effective and they don't cost all that much, right? You've seen that one before. So it's critical to have something like that on hand for any emergency and to be prepared in a time of crisis. And that's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're cutting through the nonsense and they make it easy to get hard to find medications when you need them most. They'll provide the prescription, no hoops to jump through, no waiting room, no hassle, and they deliver it right to your door. All Family Pharma even lets you order in bulk so you can stay ahead of the curve. Head over to allfamilypharmacy.com for 10% off your first order. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com. It's simple. Get the 10% savings. Be prepared.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.